Good evening and welcome to of the Record Hotline Live, especially edition football on around the country, 6 top flight matches, full programme. So we're going to jump around some of the grounds. We'll be, as you can see, we've got our men in place at Pittodrie and at Ibrox. We will also be catching up with Fraser Wilson at Tynecastle later in the show. But let's start at Pittodrie then, where we have obviously Scott Burns and Michael Gannon. Looking forward to Aberdeen versus Celtic, and what are we to expect, Mick? You did say the other night you think this is going to be like almost like a shadow Celtic side.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't expect it to be so cold right now. The sun is shining, but unfortunately, we're sitting in the shadows, and you think how I lived up here for so long, I remembered. But it's Baltic in here. I've undersold this big time. I didn't get a vest on, Keith. It's going to be freezing tonight.
It's hotter than Burkina Faso in Glasgow right now, Mick.
Well, I forgot about the frozen north. So it's a wee bit chilly in this stand. It looks nice over the other side right now. That looks nice and fast in sunshine. But we're sitting in the shade and it's a little bit nippy. But
I have to tell you, just to caveat that, I don't know if it is really hotter than Burkina Faso in Glasgow right now. But that's what they say, isn't it? It's hotter than Ibiza. It's hotter than probably hotter than Burkina Faso.
I'll take your word for it. But but in terms of the game, I think we're waiting for the team sheets. We're expecting some changes with Celtic. I think there'll be quite a few actually. I think there'll be a few kind of fringe guys getting a run out, and a few guys needing a bit of game time. Arthur Johnstone might get a run out after missing a few weeks. You think guys like Pillow Bernardo will get a game. Luke McCowan perhaps. Maybe James Forrest could make it a start as well. I think this will be the one that they'll rest a few, try out a few kind of guys that need a bit of game time, then go full throttle on Saturday for the trophy day.
Did Brendan Rodgers not say at the weekend, Mick, almost name his 11 for this game?
He said that his team was picked. He said his team was picked.
He didn't name it
on Saturday. No, he said the players all know who's playing tonight, but he said to them, "Keep it, don't tell anyone, and I'll find out." So he actually made them swear to secrecy. So they picked the team at the weekend for tonight. So they've all known since the weekend who's playing. I think it's more of Aberdeen tonight, to be honest with you. They've still got
about to say
a chance of getting this kind of third place. They've got to get a result tonight, I think, to get a bit of hope getting to the last day. I think Celtic will just get through it unscathed as their big target, whereas Aberdeen have got a lot more at stake, haven't they?
It's not just that, Burns, is it? It's not just the kind of battle for third place. Aberdeen really have to throw some sort of marker down at Celtic tonight ahead of the cup final, don't they?
Let's treat this game in isolation. Aberdeen need to get a result. They can't get beat. If they get beat tonight, then third spot is out the window because they're 3 points behind Hibs with an inferior goal difference. So Aberdeen need to get a result against Celtic. Forget the cup final. If they want to finish third, they need to get a result tonight and hope St Mirren can do them a favour. But in terms of, the cup final will take care of itself. But if they don't win that cup final, then third spot becomes the holy grail, doesn't it, for the European group stage football? And that's the massive thing for all the teams chasing that there. Because I'm sure that even if Hibs do finish third, they'll be praying that Celtic win the Scottish Cup. So in terms of, this game, Celtic obviously want to win every game. They want to win it, rack up as many points as they can and score as many goals. We've seen that a few weeks ago. Brendan Rodgers, he's not one for taking the foot off the gas. I think after the St Johnstone defeat, he went through his team. So Celtic will still be up for this, despite the fact that the league's won and they've got very little to play for. But this is a game where Aberdeen really have to do something in terms of getting a result in this fight for third spot, or it's done and dusted tonight sort of thing.
That's interesting, Bunsey, because I would have assumed that up there, the kind of feeling on the ground would be the Scottish Cup is really the one that matters. Third place, fourth place, shrug of the shoulders. The Scottish Cup final's the big one. But you seem to think, you tell me that the fans up there would rather finish third than win the Scottish Cup.
No, I'm not saying that. But in terms of, I think there's a reality there that, like, on form, if you're looking at that Scottish Cup final, can you see past Celtic winning against Aberdeen?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Most people are in that boat. It's going to take an almighty upset for Aberdeen to win that cup. So if they don't win that cup, they need to finish third to get guaranteed group stage football. And that's what I'm saying in context of third spot could still be massive. But they're not writing off the Scottish Cup.
Mick, Aberdeen got off to such a great start under Jimmy Tilleen this season. If Hibs finish third and Celtic win the Scottish Cup, would this be written off as a fourth season for Aberdeen?
No, I don't think so. I mean, listen, they through a horrendous spell when they couldn't buy a win. But listen, in the end of last season, it was Aberdeen were pretty poor. I mean, a dreadful kind of season. I mean, not that long ago, they got embarrassed by like a Darvel and all that stuff. I think Tilleen's come in. He brought back a bit of excitement the first half of the season. People were talking about them challenging the title and all that stuff. I mean, all right, admittedly a bit fanciful, but back in October, that was the kind of chat. All right, they hit the skids and through a really poor spell, but they came kind of strong again towards the end of the season, and they've got themselves back in it. They finished fourth, got to the semi-final League Cup, final of the Scottish Cup. Listen, I don't think it's a spectacular, successful season, but from where they came from, I think it's a pretty solid season, and it's given them a good base to build on for next term. If they win the Scottish Cup and grab third, it's an amazing season. So it's fine margins at this point in time. Yeah. I think it's been a pretty good term for them in general. Listen, the place has been packed out up here. Bunzy will tell you more than me. A lot of big crowds, a lot of excitement. The fans have stuck with them even through that bad run. Yeah, I think it has been a decent, more than decent season for Aberdeen, regardless.
Yeah. Let me come in there, Keith. I don't think if Aberdeen finish fourth or fifth and don't win the cup, I think Jimmy Taylor has underachieved this season. I really do. With the money he spent as a manager, and he's been well backed, he's brought in his own players. I think Aberdeen should have been well clear in third spot by now. So, but he's got the fans. He's got the fans on side. He said the fans on side all season. They've backed them and they've shown support and patience when they haven't with previous managers. So he's got that in his corner. But I think if Aberdeen will finish fourth or fifth and they'll win the cup, I think he's underachieved.
I was going to say, is the metric for judging the success of or otherwise of the man in charge at Aberdeen not usually the sort of extent of the crowds and the attendances at Pittodrie? And if you're using that as the metric, the Aberdeen fans seem fairly pleased with what they've seen, even though I think you're right, Burnsy. I think, given the start that he made to this season, this potentially could become a bit of a botch job. Aberdeen, having got themselves into such a strong situation after the first round of fixtures, they're not where they should be.
No, I don't think they are where they should be either. And if you look at, in terms of the financial backing, the board have backed them all the way. They've spent big money. They spent more than Rangers. I mean, they've really gone for it with the manager, and it'll be the same again this summer. But I just think that in terms of value for money, the Aberdeen fans, I know that they're backing them. There's a few more murmurs now, but I don't think if Aberdeen don't finish or if don't get European group stage football next season, I think they've been shortchanged this season. I really do. I mean, there have been signs of improvement, but I still think, I mean, with the start they made, they looked really good at the start of the season. And maybe, like, I watched a lot of Aberdeen and probably thought they'd get carried away that they would finish second, but they completely fell off that cliff. And since then, it's been unconvincing. It's been up and down.
He is a hard man to please, isn't he, Mick?
No half. It's the sun's shining, it's doom and gloom with the old dandies.
Sorry, you want me to sit in the fence here?
That's the fourth place a cup final is probably par, isn't it, for Aberdeen?
When's this Aberdeen press conference? I'm probably banned now.
Hearts have spent money and get that big wage bill. Hearts have spent money.
Wouldn't it be the first time?
It's no fun when you're no band, Scott. You should know that by now. Comments coming in, guys.
Last home game of the season, getting banned.
Comments coming in. Craigie, watching live on YouTube, says Tillene is just starting to build his squad, same as McInnes will do at Hearts. And that is something to look forward to, isn't it? If Tillene can take what he's done this season, build on it, come back bigger, stronger, better next season, and if Derek McInnes can start to build something at Tynecastle, once again it feeds into this kind of feeling that the top flight in Scotland is a pretty healthy place.
You never get this, though, do you? When Hibs is obviously doing well this season. When do Hibs, Hearts and Aberdeen in one season all do well as clubs? You know what I mean? It doesn't happen. So if one or two are doing well, the other one for sure will be plunged into crisis. That's just the way of it in recent seasons. I don't see that changing.
It would be good if 3 or 4 of them could get their ducks in a row at the same time. Another one here, Curry. If Aberdeen give the same performance they did against Rangers, they'll be lucky to get 4th and we'll get hammered in the final. I think that's probably a fair comment.
Absolutely fair comment, isn't it? I thought the second half against Rangers, I thought they were pretty woeful. Given what was at stake in that game, yeah, I could agree with that. It was if that team turn up even tonight against a kind of shadow Celtic team and in the cup final, they will get thumped, won't they?
Another comment here from Marzino. Maybe Aberdeen should get Pep's daughter in next season. Dear.
What they're referring to with that one, Keith?
I've no idea.
Okay.
Marzino's a very valued contributor to the show. I like his sense of humour. Right, so just to wrap it up, boys, I know from a Celtic perspective, this game could hardly mean any less, apart from the fact that Brendan Rodgers is now chasing 111 goals from the league season and trying to set little personal performances, targets for his players. Give me your score predictions, Mick. What you thinking? I think that even if Celtic make big changes to this 11, they'll probably still come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Celtic making changes. They're not going to send out the kids and lottery winners. I mean, it's going to be guys that are international players, some of them. So yeah, I think Celtic can still be. These guys have got a lot of incentive trying to force their way into a cup final team. So yeah, I think Celtic might have a bit too much though. And I think Aberdeen have got a problem. I think defensively they've been pretty. Scott will tell you they've been pretty woeful at the back a lot this season as well, and worryingly blunt up front as well, which is a bit of a bad combination really. Whereas Celtic have been pretty lethal up front. So yeah, I can't see them keep Celtic out. So and they'll need to score a few to beat Celtic. So I think Celtic will edge them out and get the result. I think.
What's the feeling up there, Buns? Is there a bit of trepidation about a visit from Celtic, even if it's a much changed Celtic?
I think that's got to be, because if you look at it, I think that the last time Aberdeen beat Celtic at Pittodrie was 2016.
Yeah,
and that was under Derek McInnes. I think Simon Church scored the winner. I mean, that's 9 years since we last won at home. So I don't think even the most confident of Aberdeen fans will be thinking, I fancy our chances of winning tonight. But what I would say is that Aberdeen have produced some big performances at Pittodrie. They go back to that win over Rangers early in the season, midweek, where the fans have really got behind them. This is the last home game at Pittodrie. They know what's at stake, so that could be enough to get them, help them, push them to get a result. I mean, that you've got to say that Celtic are favourites, but Aberdeen need to get something, and there's so much riding on it that I wouldn't be surprised if Aberdeen did get a point here tonight, because they did get a point early in the season at Celtic Park, and that's one that stung Celtic before the Premier Sports semi-final. So
and look what happened then.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the Aberdeen manager and the players are hurting from the performance on Sunday, and they've taken some sticks. So I would expect a reaction from that as well tonight. And as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if, for example, Aberdeen were to maybe get a point.
Scoreline?
I think 1-0.
Interesting. Right, boys, listen, I know you've got to get on with your real jobs, so we'll let you go. Thanks very much for joining us and enjoy the game.
I've got to jump down to Primark to get a new jacket. I'm freezing here. I'm going to jump down to the shops, get a big coat.
Primark, you scarf it out?
Well, listen, the daily record wages, unfortunately.
You must have got a wage rise, did you? You're not told us, no?
That'll go pound stretcher.
Right, boys, thanks very much for joining us, and as I say, enjoy the game. Safe down the road.
Cheers, chaps.
Cheers.
Scott and Andy, I'm so sorry. I know you've been waiting there patiently. Boys at Ibrox for Rangers versus Dundee United. Guys, what you hearing? Anything interesting turning up at the stadium tonight? There's so much noise around Rangers, so many stories around Rangers. Anything changed in the last few hours?
Can't we get in? Because you've just told me it's just the tannoys, come on. There's an interesting story on the Daily Record website suggesting that Jack Butland's going to be back in goals tonight, so that seems to be the big team news for tonight. Did think, Scott, that he was going to be coming back in. I thought he's been out of the Barry Ferguson's lineup for a while now, since that sort of really poor spell. I was expecting him to get a shot again, did you?
It didn't really cross my mind, Andy, if I'm honest. I just thought Liam Kelly had been so steady, played so well, that he would probably see out the season. But I suppose when you kind of take a step back, think about it, 2 games left, suppose you would want Jack Butland to come back in and get some minutes again, wouldn't you? Just to get a feel out again, even if it is just ahead of next season. There's going to be big changes. Who knows what's going to happen? Takeover, new manager. Jack Butland's still going to be here next season. Is Liam Kelly still going to be here next season? Who knows? So I think Barry Ferguson, if it's true, has just decided, no, it's time. There's 2 games left. Time to put Butland back in. Try and get his confidence up a wee bit, because I think his confidence was absolutely shot after the Hibs game when he was left out and he made another error, one of many over a period of time. It's no surprise when Liam Kelly did come in. So no, I think the manager's probably just looked at it and thought that the time's right, bring him back in, give him a couple of games before the end of the campaign.
Feels a bit harsh on Liam Kelly though as well, in the sense, because I don't think he's let Rangers down at all since he came in.
Not really made any mistakes, has he?
No, I remember speaking to him in pre-season when we were away in Venlo in Holland with him, and he felt like he had to justify his move here because he was giving up the captaincy at Motherwell, he was giving up the Scotland place, and he had to somehow justify it. And he said, well, listen, I'm one injury, one loss of form away from coming and playing European games, no firm games. And to be fair, that's exactly how it's planned out for him. So, and he, as I say, he hasn't let the team down, whether it be in Europe, obviously the penalty save here against Bilbao just behind us, and, or any league game since. He's played in a couple of firm wins. I mean, it's from his point of view, coming as a number 2 goalie, I don't think this could have worked out better for him.
But the other thing is, Jacko and Andy, he's currently Rangers' number 1 goalkeeper, and he's only got a year left on his contract. So, at the press conference yesterday, spoke to John Suter, Barry Ferguson touched on it on Friday. There's so much uncertainty around this place, and players are feeling it. It's not just the manager. There's players out of contract, there's players with a year left. John Suter's one of them, Liam Kelly's another. I suppose if you're in Liam Kelly's shoes, you're right, you would want to just keep playing, because people are going to be watching, whether it's Kevin Thelwell, the new owners, a potential new manager. He would have been desperate just to play out the rest of the season and play well, but Butland's going to get a chance.
Well, that's what I was going to say. First of all, there's a comment here from Dr. James Elliott, watching on YouTube, who says, feels like Butland is going to be allowed to say goodbye if he plays tonight. Maybe there is an element of that in there. Interestingly, Scott, what you've just said, though, do you think it's possible that a potential new manager has asked to see a few players tonight that haven't been, because presumably if a new man's going to come into the job, he's behind the 8 ball, as we've said, about making his own assessments. Do you think it's even feasible that another manager has said and interfered in the team that Barry Ferguson puts out tonight?
I think at this stage in the process, I think it's unlikely, but Jacko, with this club, you just never know. You don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, obviously there's been stories in the last couple of days about Ancelotti. The manager search is underway. Is it as far down the line as that, where a potential new manager's looked at the team and having an influence? I would doubt it, but there's certainly that kind of feel to it with a lot of these players, that someday, whoever it is, whether they're here just now or whether they're going to be coming in, once they see what they've got and what they're going to need to work with, that might be Kevin Thelwell, who's going to have a huge part in this, with the new manager, obviously, whoever that might be. So, listen, nothing would surprise me, but I'd be surprised if it was that far down the line where somebody was actually tinkering with Barry Ferguson still in the hot seat.
I do think it's interesting just what one of the commenters were saying there. Is this a chance to say goodbye? Because I think the Rangers fans here have clearly taken Jack Butland to their hearts over these 2 years here. Obviously, especially the last 6 months, but this season in general hasn't been anywhere near the standard of last year. But if it is to be a decision made in Jack Butland, one thing you can't have him being one of the biggest earners at the club. He can't be sitting on the bench next season. They have to make a decision. If he's going to be the number 1 next year, he has to show that he's capable of being that in order to justify a pretty substantial wage that we believe he's on. So, listen, I think, one way or another, Jack Butler only stays here if he's playing next year. That's the only way that happens. Otherwise, I think they do have to move him on.
But if you're of a mind to sell him, is it wise to get him these 2 games so people can have a look, he gets back into a rhythm and kind of sounds ridiculous, but almost proves himself again? Because if you were judging him on this season, or certainly his last kind of 3 months in a Rangers jersey in terms of playing, you know, who would take him? Because his confidence, as I say, looked absolutely shot. It got to a point where, you know, and it's not been unkind on him, because in the main, I think he's been a really good signing. He was brilliant last season, but it got to the point earlier in this season where he was costing a goal every game. That's why Barry Ferguson at the time had no option to take him out of the European game. He had to, because he, you know, fearing that he would sell another goal. So I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, a few months ago, at the start of this season, you would never have thought, you know, we'd be sitting here talking about Jack Butland's future, maybe get sold on, Liam Kelly potentially being a number 1. It's crazy what's happened this season, but that's where we are.
Right. Well, look, I was just playing devil's advocate a little bit there, because I would love to have been the guy that picked up the phone to Barry Ferguson to tell him, Barry, would you do us a favour? Would you just play this team tonight? I think, judging by the sort of aggressive front foot nature of his press conference yesterday, that would be a conversation which probably wouldn't end too well. What I do think, though, guys, and I'll throw another one at you, it wouldn't surprise me. The Butland thing is a surprise. I'm going to throw another one at you. I think Danilo might get a start tonight.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me, because I think, we all know what you get with Sergio Dessers. He will do things that will drive the Rangers punters mental at one moment, and then he'll do things that will get them off their seats and cheering the next. Listen, I think most Rangers fans will be of the opinion that Sergio Dessers might be a good enough backup striker going forward, but he's certainly not the guy that can be relied upon to buy you to a title. So, could Danilo be that man? I think he's shown flashes at times that he's a good, decent striker. I think injuries have disrupted him. Every time he seems to be getting into a bit of flow, he knocks him back. But even then, he's still not anywhere near the prolific, but inverted commas, the way that Sergio Dessers is, a guy who closing in 50 goals over 2 years, and yet you still have to sort of caveat that. But you know, he doesn't score the bundles of goals, the amount of goals that Dessers does.
Surely, if Danilo starts tonight, Jacko, it's a short window job. Surely. I mean,
I don't know. I wonder if Barry Ferguson is confident that he's got enough in his squad. I know that winning at Ibrox has been not an easy task for Rangers recently, but I wonder if he's looking at Hibs away as being a more difficult end of season game. Maybe he's wanting to rest a few up. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. What is also interesting, guys, I wrote an article which I wanted to get your thoughts on. I wrote it online earlier today, talking about Davide Ancelotti. I think it's Davide, or is it David Tomato? And I was making the point.
Big Dave, I think we agreed to that the weekend.
Big Dave. I'm making the point in the article that, and it's something we kind of touched on the other night, I think there's a huge element of risk attached to this one. I'm surprised by the way it was portrayed as a fait accompli in Spain and in Italy. I think that raises a red flag a little bit in terms of, who is it that's promoting this? Who's pushing this? It seems to be coming more from his side, perhaps even his dad's side. Don Carlo might be getting a couple of favours done. I think it's way too early. You two guys would agree with that, wouldn't you? That it's impossible to make the conclusion that this guy has got the job when the process really hasn't got up and running yet.
Scott and I were both making the calls the other night. Was it Monday night when the story broke? Certainly the people we were speaking at the club were insisting that it's nowhere near even the point where you can say he was the front runner, never mind the next candidate, the next manager. So I said, again, I think I was on Hotline Live the other night and we spoke about just how odd that was, that on one end of the story you're getting it portrayed as being a done deal, And then from the other end, the Glasgow end, it's coming in as, hold your horses. So somebody's got the wrong end of the stick somewhere.
Yeah.
I would think
there's definite interest.
Yeah, definite interest, but as in terms of how far down the road it is, whether somebody's getting carried away with themselves, or somebody's not perhaps close at home, is it telling things the way that they really are, that we don't know. But I think there's still a few more names. I just think, like you, listen, this guy might be the next, he might be the next Carlo Ancelotti, if you want to put it that way, right? He might be the next big thing, but it's a gamble because he doesn't have a track record that Rangers can point to. Yeah, he's worked at some big clubs, but we all pretty much believe that that's because of who his dad is. He certainly played a part. Everyone I've spoken to down in Merseyside, that I knew when he was at Everton, spoke about how hard a worker he was, the work he did, especially around things like set pieces. He was really, inventive and really progressive in how they dealt with those aspects. But until he strikes out his own, nobody's can really grasp how good this guy is.
Agreed. Scott,
Is Rangers the place to do that? I'm getting concerned.
Jacko, the key thing for me is who's driving the search for the manager, because as you say, Ancelotti would be a massive gamble. When you think about, you ask anybody connected to this club, what would be required in the next Rangers manager, and there was boxes to tick. He barely ticks any of the boxes other than being a really highly regarded young coach. So he's got no link to the club. He doesn't know Scottish football. He's never managed a first team before. There are huge questions over him. But I go back to it, who's driving it? Because from the outside, it feels like, with a big name, it feels like a very American takeover candidate to me, and something that they would like. So is it purely them? How much influence has Kevin Thelwell got? Has Patrick Stewart got an influence? Because at least he would be a guy who's Scottish, knows the club obviously a lot better, could maybe flag up some of these concerns. I think, as Andy says, there are other candidates, but I do think they've spoken to Ancelotti, and there's definite interest there. And as you say, it's a big assumption to assume he's going to get it, because it would be a huge gamble. Just the managerial appointment's a gamble, but that would be a massive one. For in terms of where Rangers are at the moment as a club,
and how much work is required.
Correct. You're talking about the 4 in a row behind Celtic. The new manager's got to go up against Brendan Rodgers, and potentially Rodgers last season at Celtic. We know the money that Celtic have got in the bank, potentially more Champions League money to come. And it's a monumental task.
Well, I'm going to throw one at you, right? Because I think it's worth bearing in mind, and I wrote in that article today. Let's not forget, Andrew Kavanagh is the driving force behind this takeover, right? He's doing it in association with the 49ers, and they'll bring a great deal to the table. But this is Andrew Kavanagh's baby, if you like. He's the one that wants to front it and lead it. Now, Andrew Kavanagh has made his money, and significant money at that, from health insurance. That means that the guy, for a living, and he's done very well out of it, has had to make risk assessments on a daily basis. That, to me, and I hear what you're saying, Scott, about a touch of the Americanisms about it in terms of go for a name. But if this guy has spent his whole life trying to be risk aversive, why would he end up coming into Rangers and picking a 35-year-old manager with no CV, so to speak, as an individual manager? That one I find strange as well. There's so many things about it that don't quite fit.
It can only be because of how highly rated by the people he's worked with.
And how convincing Kevin Thelwell, for instance, makes the argument to go for Ancelotti.
Still think it's a big risk. You said it, Scott. It's a big gamble.
For me, it seems like an unnecessary gamble.
Yeah.
That's what he says. Every managerial appointment, but as you're talking about mitigating risk, there's certain things Rangers could do to mitigate the risk, get somebody with experience, get somebody who's worked at a club of this size with the unique pressures that you get, and clubs that are expected to win every week and expected to challenge for trophies. Somebody knows what they're doing. Maybe somebody, some knowledge of the British game. All these things that could be added in. Somebody who's worked at a club, you've got twin duties as well. You might have to play a certain way domestically, but a different way in European football. All these kind of things.
But also, you're talking about mitigating the risk. And aside from anything else, one way take some of the risk out of it is getting a guy in early. I mean, if reports are to be believed in Spain,
Well, that ship sailed.
but Ancelotti's not going to come into what mid-June after the two Brazil games.
Potentially, we'll be a week before they're due to start pre-season. So I mean, even that doesn't add up to me.
That's a big danger, Jack, because you think about how this season started for Rangers, how behind the eight ball they were. The whole Ibrox fiasco and going to Hampden and getting knocked out of the Champions League, and budgets changing daily for Philippe Clement. They were so far behind. It felt, I know for supporters, it felt like the season was a write-off before it had even begun. And there's a serious danger of that happening again next season, which would be a real shame given the optimism that's surrounding this potential takeover.
It just feeds into the whole, and this is where we're fortunate, isn't it, is in this business, that there's going to be so much to write about. There's going to be so many stories to try and uncover, and so many plot twists. I think they might start a lot sooner than people expect, these plot twists. So I think the next couple of days could be interesting, boys. Scott, before you go, a comment from one of your fans, DS30, says the guy at Ibrox on the left looks like Wayne Rooney and Charlie Adam had a love child together.
Yeah, that'd be some player, by the way.
Well, you were a good player, wee man.
Try to score goals for the halfway line every time.
Right, brilliant. Boys, go and enjoy the sunshine. Go. What?
Hotline Live, Jacko.
I'll ban him now, mate. I'll ban him out.
Can I just tell you, Steve, just finally, I've had a look. Burkina Faso, 37 degrees. Now, it's hot here. It's not that hot.
Well, it's all relative. Right, guys, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the game, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers, guys.
And as if by magic, from sunny Tynecastle, I don't know if that's hotter than Burkina Faso, Fraz, but this could be quite a heated contest, couldn't it? Because there's so much on the line for St Johnstone tonight. It's tatty bye time from the Premier League unless they get a win.
100%. Can you hear me okay?
I can, Fraser.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. Oh God, it's absolutely boiling here. You better believe me. You could probably fry an egg on my forehead right now as we speak. But no, you're right. I mean, the heat's right on St Johnstone there. Actually just left the pre-match check of the pitch. They've just gone inside. Don't know, it's quite a quiet looking camp. I'm sure their minds are fully focused in game mode now, but you're right. They need to at least match or better Ross County's result tonight, or it's tatty bye time for St Johnstone, as you say. That'll be the end of 16 years in the top flight for the Perth side. Quite a run. And of course, Derek McInnes was the man that took them there all those years ago, 2009, if my calculations are correct. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time. And funnily enough, I covered the last game of last season when Craig Levein pulled off the great escape with a 2-1 win at Motherwell. That was the survival Sunday afternoon that Craig Levein gave us a brilliant quote that he thought he was going to be carried out in a box. Such was the pressure. They'll be hoping to avoid that kind of pressure this weekend, but look, they might not even get that far. You know what I mean? If they lose tonight and Ross County pick up anything, then it's game over for St Johnstone. So, pressure very much on the Saints tonight.
Just before we move on, Fraz, we've got a comment here from Curry. Did Fraser spend 20 minutes getting ready for that pose before he turned the camera on? It is. It's very picturesque.
Yeah, you like that? Mate, well, look, I'm sitting on a stairwell. I don't know if you can see that. It's the only thing I could get without the sun blaring on the screen. So try to do you guys a favour. No,
it's perfect.
The back of my neck, by the way, is red raw.
It's perfect, although Curry does add, get a T-shirt over his mankini.
Yeah, who's the guy who's coming up with the lookalikes earlier? I was fearing I was going to get a cross between Rod Gilbert and Skeletor or something. Is my
Aye, well,
love child Rod Gilbert and Skeletor?
I would be very careful with opening that door and asking for people to walk through it, Fraz, because
Yeah,
I'm going to I'm going to have to hand out bans all over the place tonight. I fear if this gets any worse.
Let's get back to football, please.
Yeah, you mentioned that Derek McInnes, the guy that brought St Johnstone into the Premier League, now looks like the man, well, is going to be the man, let's not beat around the bush, is going to be the next Hearts manager. What's the feeling on the ground through there? Because, you know, Derek McInnes sometimes gets a bit of a negative reaction, which I find hard to understand among supporters. Are the Hearts fans pleased with this? Are they excited by it? Are they welcoming it?
Well, I've stood on the other side this main stand with you back in October the 15th, I think it was, the day Neil Critchley was unveiled. I just finished speaking to Neil Critchley, his first presser. Me and you both agreed that day Derek McInnes was a man that was tailor-made for this job.
Yeah.
And nothing's changed over the last, 7-8 months, since October the 15th. Nothing has changed. Well, what I was going to say was, I think more of them are now. Back then, remember, Johnstone Analytics was fresh. That was a new thing that was coming in. They wanted something a bit hipster, something a bit different, a bit European. Back then, Jimmy Tellene was in the middle of his incredible run at the start of the Aberdeen run. Everyone thought that was the way to go. Scandinavia, don't just go on the lazy managerial merry-go-round, we were all told. Except the problem with that managerial merry-go-round, and by the way, it's no merry-go-round because Derek McInnes stays at clubs a long time. He's a loyal manager. Is he not the longest serving in the top flight at the moment? So that's not so much a merry-go-round. But what I was going to say, the problem with coming up with names like that is because they're usually the right fit. They're usually the right one. And Derek McInnes has been waiting for a job the size, probably equal to Aberdeen, if not bigger. I'd say equal, to get his teeth right into a challenge again at the top end of the table. He's took Kilmarnock probably last season to the as far as he could get them. He's finishing this season strong with them. They've as well documented the problems they had with European football at the start of the season and injuries. But Derek McInnes is a manager waiting at this level, I think. And I think it's already been said in this show, the investment that's coming in for Jamestown from Tony Bloom. Derek McInnes spends money well. He's got a good track record in the transfer market. He knows how to get results in the Scottish Premier League. He's relatively young, and yet he's coming up for 800 games as a manager. He ticks all the boxes for me, and I actually think his style of football is tailor-made for this tight little pitch at Tynecastle. That when teams get on top of you, especially Hearts, and the Hearts fans get behind that, then it's some place to play your football. You know, he'll be aggressive, he'll be front-footed, he'll get the ball in the box, he'll be pacing the wings, he'll probably be a big man in the middle. Everything Tynecastle wants to see, chances created. And bizarrely, despite the fact Neil Critchley started off with a right front-footed, aggressive system, he seemed to back off of that latterly. And that's ultimately what got him in trouble. He went with this diamond formation that just wasn't working. It was just a bit too slow, predictable. They were getting overrun in midfield. And ultimately, he paid the price. Now, I do feel a wee bit sorry for Neil Critchley because he came in after 8 games with 2 points on the board and left with 40 points on the board. He got results against the teams at the bottom. He kept getting to very close to achieving something, but as it was kind of became a cliche, the big games, just when they were on the precipice of achieving something, they would go and lose. Whether that was qualifying for the latter stages in Europe, whether it was the semi-final last month against Aberdeen, or the final game before the split, 2 chances to get in the top 6. They kept letting themselves down, and ultimately that's what cost him. So now you're looking for a manager that can handle the pressure, that can get big results, and honestly, nothing's changed in the last 7 or 8 months. For me, Derek McInnes is that man.
No, you're right. You're right. And I think what you say is interesting there, Fraser, in terms of if he gets in the door, if he gets up and running early, if he starts to build momentum, if the fans are buying into it, the football's front-footed, aggressive, that place becomes a cauldron, and it becomes a cauldron like that. It could quickly become one of the stories of next season, and especially given that Derek McInnes is going to have this opportunity to spend a few quid in the summer. I think there's so much for the Hearts fans to get excited about right now.
Yeah. And you know, the opposite of it is, and I've seen it 2 or 3 times this season, when it's the opposite of the cauldron for the away team, it gets right toxic for Hearts. If things aren't going well. The Petro Cup game, the Hibs defeat 7 days after the Petro Cup game, and then latterly in Critchley's tenure as well. when things aren't going well for Hearts, it does get toxic. So they
Yes.
need a manager with substance, with a bit of gravitas. A Keaton Terry McInnes just ticks all the boxes for me.
Exactly right, mate. I am fairly sure he'll bring the Heart support with him, and I think that they've got good times ahead for me. I think.
So sorry,
right,
to answer your question, I do think far more of them now. Probably the majority of them now are on board for Derek McInnes.
They've realised it's a good idea. They should have listened to me. Should have listened to me 8 months ago. So should the board. They wouldn't have been in this mess. Anyway, in terms of that's the kind of immediate future, or not the immediate future, but the kind of short-term future for Hearts next season. In terms of the immediate future, Fraser, this game tonight, they're safe. The pressure's off. They've now got an interim manager who's playing Lon Shankland as a striker. What a great idea that was. Straightforward for Hearts tonight, or do you think there might be a bit of a death rattle from St Johnstone?
It's a good term, that. I like that. Death rattle. Well, they give themselves every opportunity, St Johnstone. I like that. I might try and use it tonight if they get that if they get that result they need. I don't know. Look, Hearts are playing with freedom. Saw that on Saturday. I was here on Saturday. Shankland's banging them in for Liam Fox. God, he scored 5 goals in Liam Fox's 5 games as interim manager, and he's only scored 9 all season. So that just shows Fox knows how to get the best out of him. But St Johnstone also, unlike Ross County that have lost 7 in a row, St Johnstone keep coming up with the odd big result. None bigger than that Celtic result maybe a month ago now. So I don't know. I'm really intrigued to see what we see here tonight. Whether St Johnstone need, which is greater than Hearts, is enough for them to maybe just get a point and keep the thing tumbling along till Sunday. I don't know. I could see St Johnstone getting a result here tonight, even if it is just that point. And then they better hope Ross County don't win against Dundee. But look, Hearts just want next season here, don't they? They're the opposite. Yeah. While St Johnstone are everything in the here and now, Hearts are already looking towards a new era in next season.
So you're back in the draw tonight for us?
I'll sit in the fence again, as always, yes. I'll go for that.
Right, well, before I let you go and enjoy the night, Rebel says, Fraser's a cross between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise. I'll email my address for a free T-shirt later, Fraser.
That's the wife. Cheers, June.
What size are you looking for, Rebel? Right, brilliant. Fraser, thanks for joining us. Thanks to the guys that were on earlier from Pittodrie and Ibrox. Thanks to everybody who's watched and sent in messages and comments. Much appreciated, always are. And we'll be back this time tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, hopefully with Daniel Caw taking care of the comment section. Right, thanks very much again, people. See you soon. Enjoy the football tonight. Cheers.